Alrighty, so the old 7.3 started having back pressure problems on the exhaust back pressure valve, so made the decision to delete it. So in order to do that, if you've never done a delete on these things, you get new pedestal. I got new downpipe clamps, new intake for, actually just decided to replace the whole turbo. This is a KC stage 1 turbo. See, I'm going to bellowed up pipes. Well, in there, get this EBPV delete plug, new up pipe housing, new outlet for the turbo, and yeah, KC stage 1 turbo. It has a deleted exhaust section on it, and these things are pretty cool. 4-inch inlet versus the factory. Should be a nice upgrade. This is a 0.84 AR, kind of simple, not a little bit more than stock, but should be a good run around tow rig turbo. So go through the install. I'll start by taking everything off. First order of business is get all these intake clamps off, get this intake manifold off. Then we'll get to the main 2 bolts, hold the turbo in, and then pull the turbo off and get these V-band clamps off and go from there. Also, one of my favorite tools, this little DeWalt compact impact. It's got a 3/8 driver on it, so all my little sockets work on it. Really handy. Kind of get in here, get all these clamps off. These are all 11. So yeah, this actually has a kind of bolt function on it as well, so when you're torquing stuff down, you don't overdo stuff. But yeah, not too hard to get all this simple stuff off. Starting to get these clamps off, and we'll pull this little intake spider out. Once you get these clamps off, and this V-band clamp here is a little bit of a pain, not too bad. Then there's some clamps down there on the intake manifold. This guy just pulls out. So you can see I disconnected the vacuum lines here, unbolted the intake air heater hose. We're actually going to delete this. You can see it's a little bit of a restriction there. I'm going to actually run my boost gauge here. And you can also see while we're in here how messy it is. So we've been leaking, so before we go too much further, I'm going to, oh interesting, you can actually see my exhaust back pressure valve here that I was worried about is actually already unplugged. See that there? So it is not even plugged in. So it's been causing me issues lately. Interesting. So I'm gonna put some rags in these intake manifolds so we don't get anything in our engine. See those here, just a little bit of oil. It's fairly normal. 240 some thousand miles on this rig. So I'll take the next thing is get these kind of bolts off and get the downpipe off and that V-band for the, you can see it back there, off, and get the turbo off. Now it's only been a few minutes and I've kind of got way back in here. You know, I see I got turbo out. Old turbo actually doesn't look too bad. It feels pretty tight in there. The most important thing is getting PV blaster, spraying it on your pipe bolts back here. Everyone says these things are quite the pain. So before I get too much further, I'm just gonna get in and spray everything that I can right here and let it sit and go from there. All right, I've heard lots of horror stories about these V-band clamps not coming off. I just used this, pop one side off, and then tapped it with that. I wasn't trying to save it, but it honestly looks reusable, even though I have new ones. So downpipe clamp is off. Well, it wasn't too bad. Well, problem 2 was found. There's only 2 bolts that hold the turbo down. I see one of them in there. I'm just messing with the clamp. This one was finger loose. So I haven't even got the socket out to get it out yet. So this one came right out. Some weird marks on it. It's probably been in there just vibrating, doing nothing. So it's probably one of my main oil leaks that I have back there. So I'm gonna pull the other bolt out and see if that makes it easier to get that V-band clamp off. I got the V-band clamp loose and that should be able to hold the turbo in. All right, old turbo's out. This back clamp here was a little more annoying to get out, but it's actually pretty tight. You can see there's no play in it whatsoever. So I had a pretty good. I usually run it with I have a hydro tuner on it, so it's tuned about as much as my stock injectors will do. But you can see this valve. That's what we're looking to delete here. Is that guy on the new turbo, and that's what it kind of looks like out here. So tonight I'm just going to soak this in PB Blaster, those bolts, and then let it sit overnight and go from there. Well, yeah, these bolts can be a bitch. I got the lower ones off, top ones, the bolt was just so rusted my socket wouldn't fit, so trusty Sawzall got in there, made a lot quicker work of it. I have the same issue on the other side. I don't think the Sawzall in, so I think I'm gonna have to grind the head off and go from there. Yeah, this side, not fun at all. Grinder, see I nicked this a little bit, use my cutting wheel. But yeah, grinder, cutoff wheel, and she's off. Let's see if I can pull it out as one assembly. I don't think I can, but I'm gonna try. And we'll go from there. Well, I got this off. I'm drilling this out for an EGT Pro since I didn't have one. Now I'm gonna run more boost. I wanted to, so I drill it with a 5/16. It's a little tight for a 1/8 MPT tap, but it's started, so it's going in there. And you can see my oil leaks. It's from my pedestal. We'll get that cleaned up here. Okay, so on to the gauges. Do the EGT probe. They have this little like ferrule. This goes into what I tapped. Also use like the super high temp, 2000 degree plus anti-seize. Always use just a little because this stuff gets everywhere. And I'll put that into my tap thing. It doesn't take much. From there, I can thread this in. Then we just screw our probe in, and then that is ready to go. Okay, another thing I wanted to do was install this crossover tube before I put the turbo and the pipes back on. So how this works is you have these little O-ring bun fittings and then flareless fittings on this side. So you just screw these in and then oil this side, connect to these. This is the crossover tube. It's easy to do while this is out. I'll show you right where it goes. There's two plugs. This is one. That is the other one. So this crossover line will just go between these two, like so, and that will help even out oil pressure across the heads. So everyone says this is mod, making things idle smoother, so it's easy to do while it's out. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, now my crossover line is installed. Very simple. You just torque to tie an O-ring bun into the head, and then a flareless B-nut into this crossover line. Next thing I'm going to change those O-rings out, and I can mount my my pedestal. Okay, new pedestal. Got this from Riff Raff Diesel, as well as I got their turbo install kit. Got new bolts to the turbo, and it's got new O-rings. So there's kind of big O-ring, small O-ring on the top. Same with the bottom. You can see the old ones here. These ones were actually didn't look like they were leaking. This was clearly leaking. You can see also we're deleting this whole setup here, which this is what actuates that exhaust back pressure valve, and this is what the plug. And then we actually got a plug with the kit. I'll show you that when I plug that in. So now I'll get the O-rings installed and get this cleaned off and installed. All right, new pedestals in. 4 bolts at the bottom. They torque to 18 foot-pounds. You can see where my factory bellows just failed and came apart. When I assemble this thing, I'm going to pre-assemble the driver's side, slide that in, bolt it in loosely, and then slip the passenger side on, and then bolt it up after it's in there. Don't forget to use your Loctite on these things, so we'll let you know if this is a good plan to do these. Also, don't forget your gaskets on the collector side. Okay, so that side is loosely bolted in. Now I'm gonna see if I can fit my assembly in here. Hopefully it just drops. Look at that. Not too bad. Okay. I'm gonna go get that bolted up and hopefully I can get that bag of bolts here on the far assembly. It looks like the hard one. Okay, I got the lower bolts all loosely in. You can see my new, call it the ferrule or whatever it is for the pyrometer. I got that guy in. Got my gaskets in there. Got the right side is tight. The left side I just need to get the bolts in. And then I got the nuts and bolts loosely in here as well. It's deceivingly more spacious in the camera. I wish it was that spacious in real life. But yeah, everything's looking to come in. I'll put those other 2 bolts in, get these top 2 tight, then I can drop the turbo in. If I did this again, I would have booked the passenger side first and bolted it up to the up pipe or to the collector first, because you see my setup here. I'm only lucky that I have one of these in 10 mil. But yeah, I will get it. But yeah, again, do the passenger side first, not the driver's side. It'll be a lot easier. Okay, I got my V-bang clamp. I've got it sitting over the downpipe loose, the nuts off of it. I do have to get that over that, so I'm gonna put the turbo in. Got the new O-rings in there. I'll be able to put it in, put the bolts in, get that V-bang clamp on the up pipes, and then slide in. There's, I think, enough room. I can do the downpipe one later. Then we'll set the turbo in, and I'll show you that. The hardest part about the job so far is getting that turbo clamp on. I actually just took the bolts out of the driver's side, the pipes, and I was able to get clamp on. I know it's kind of hard to see in there, but it's in. That was a pain. That was lots and lots of adjusting and trying, and most people say you have to do the clamp first and fight those bolts. I just didn't want to do that, so I was able to get this done, and it's on. Okay, I removed the intake air heater, installed this riffraff diesel plug. That's where I'm going to actually retop my boost gauge. Got it cleaned up as I'm going to get it. I leave this side installed, that way I can put it in, rock it down one versus trying to force it in 2 at the same time. It's going to make it easier to install. Be sure to put your new O-ring on the turbo. I'm going to take that cap off and do it there before I slide this in. Okay, so I have it set up before it's about to go in. Got my new O-ring on the turbo. This is your exhaust pressure delete plug. I don't think it's really needed, but just cleaned up this wiring harness and caps it. Okay, it's on. That's pretty self-explanatory. One thing I like to do is I like to leave the clamps until after it's installed loosely. That way you can align them so that you can get them off next time. So yeah, I got the lower clamps on, got these guys on. You know, there's probably a torque spec on these, but I just get them good and tight. See how they're between the lines? Those lines are for the clamps themselves. So that's just a reverse assembly. I'm gonna do my boost gauge next here after I put that on, and the new intake boot for the turbo. Boot's only go on one way. If you see, it's got this rib. This rib lines up to go in there. That way that'll hold it on, and the clamp goes over there. So as long as that rib's in good shape, this boot should be good to go. Yeah, the new turbo comes with a new intake boot, which, I mean, just size comparison. Which, I mean, it's not all turbine compressor, right? It's that those surge holes that keep it from surging. Which this one, with my boost setting, every time I let off, it would really be would surge a lot. Yeah, it just should make quite a difference and run cooler. Getting this boot started was actually really hard, so actually on both of these there's 2 nuts that hold this. That's one of them. Behind that there. Now I took those out, got the clamp on that. Now I can get that down and get that started. It was kind of really hard to get this 4-inch shift boot to kind of line up with everything here. So yeah, I thought something that I thought would be easy was not, so that was my little trick. Okay, next up I have this code eliminator from Riffraff Diesel. You just take it, you put it in here, you remove the original intake air heater line here, put this under here, and I'm going to run it to this ground right here. That way it won't throw a code from removing this intake air heater. I'm also going to remove this ground just to get it out of the way. Okay, now I'm on to my boost gauge. So first thing I'm gonna do is gonna remove this 3/16 Allen PE head from my intake air heater delete. And the first fitting is this little guy here. Threads in with a 7/16 wrench. Yeah, Teflon taped it. And it's just gonna thread in here until you feel it gets its MPT fitting, it looks like. So we'll thread it in until it feels firm. Stop, don't over tighten. You don't need to be crazy tight because it's got the seal on it. Do my boost line here. How these compression fittings work is there is this little conical piece that gets compressed by the B nut here, or whatever nut you want to call it. And it just goes on with 3/8 wrench, so you just slide that in the hole, tighten that down, and now you have a sealed boost fitting.